Hello and welcome. This is my channel to the world. To the world. My name, I go by a lot of names by different people, by the way. My birth name is Matthew, but almost nobody that I know calls me that. Maybe a few people. My middle name is Patrick, which is what my family has called me like my whole life. And funnily enough, my last name is basically spelled the same as Stephen Colbert. Colbert. It's not pronounced that way though. It's Colbert. And my last name starts with an H instead of a C, so it's Holbert. It's kind of a weird name, honestly. Almost everybody asks how it's spelled, but that's how it's spelled. Anyway, I don't know why I went into that in the beginning, but hey, why not? So, I along the trend with a lot of these is that I don't really have like a determined subject to begin with, but my initial thought was thinking about cures to zombification. You know, you have that movie I Am Legend with Will Smith, and he's like, I gotta find the cure to the zombie pandemic. And I don't know if those were necessarily zombies. I mean, they technically eat other humans or something. Or do they, in that movie, do they eat other humans or do they get infected when they bite other? Is it a zombie apocalypse? Can you give some comments, giving some insight into the I Am Legend movie? Apparently, they're making a sequel to that, or maybe that was a fan thing. I don't know. But how the hell are you going to make a sequel to the movie where the guy dies in the end? You know what I mean? Anyway, they constantly are trying to make whatever money they can from whatever source they can. These Hollywood types. I mean, what are you going to do about them? You know? They just keep on putting children in compromising positions. And then, propping up these specific people that give them immense amounts of wealth because of their physical appearance. It's just so great, how they exploit human beings and physical attributes over character, you know. It's so great. So the cure to the zombie apocalypse, though, in that movie, the I Am Legend movie, it's part of it. Part of the cure is Will Smith's blood, because he's immune somehow to the virus. Probably because he's not a dummy or something. It's like it only affects the people who are ignorant. Maybe ignorance is the virus. Maybe ignorance is the virus, and maybe that's why they act out in such evil ways. Huh. Interesting. Anyway, so the cure then, if ignorance is the nature of the virus, then maybe the cure is knowledge. Huh. Maybe the cure to the ignorance zombie apocalypse is knowledge. Wow. What a profound realization. So how do people attain knowledge? Well, luckily there's been a history, a lineage, a legacy, a kind of thread throughout history that tells us how to attain that knowledge. Only problem is, it's been held secret by a bunch of different groups, because if they know that if you attain knowledge, then you'll have power. And God forbid the average person should have power more than what they want them to have. Because if they did, then their power would be threatened. Because their only reason that they have any power is because of the knowledge. Wow. We're just hitting home runs with every one of these, Maybe if people were allowed to enter the temple of knowledge, they'd be cleansed of the zombie curse. It's that's totally ridiculous. I'm sorry, that's just stupid. I mean, because they're just useless eaters. They don't have any brains. I mean, they're zombies, right? So they'll never be able to reach the levels of wisdom that the elite sort of what the Templars, the was it it's not the Templars. Oh yeah, the Freemasons, the well, I mean, let's face it, just the general sort of well-to-do. I mean, the funny thing is the Freemasons are actually recruiting now with advertisements, which basically means that their numbers have dwindled because people are not even interested in it, or they think that it's a goddamn evil conspiracy group, secret society kind of thing, and there's just a total lack of interest. Hell, I even had a guy that was in the Men's Warehouse come in and was, told me about it and everything. And from what he was telling me, I mean, he was probably a low level Freemason, but, it's just a bunch of dudes who own businesses who want to get together and sort of talk shop or share experiences or whatever, and just kind of a manhood kind of, it's almost like the Boy Scouts for older guys who want to be able to show off and be sociable among their own peer group. As far as I understand, that's basically all that it is. And yeah, there's esoteric knowledge that you can, if you want to, explore, but I mean, it doesn't require being in that group to have any knowledge of what they're about, if that makes any sense. So the need to have membership in these groups is unnecessary. What is necessary is some kind of discipline of attaining knowledge. And the best way I've found to have the incentive or the desire to do so is to sort of purify yourself from our culture. The reason being, of course, that our culture is rooted in ignorance. The mainstream culture is essentially an ignorance culture. It's all based on, ignorance is bliss, and bliss is better than to be to struggle for knowledge, to be intelligent, because because in the current situation, because there's so few people who have knowledge, who have intelligence, it's unrelatable and therefore unsocial. It's not sociable to be intelligent because that puts you above other people, and you can't have that. You can't be smarter than me because that offends me. It offends me. So generally speaking, you don't have very many people who are philosophers, and philosophy is kind of dead in our culture. So is poetry, for that matter. Basically, all the things that I've ever been interested in are dead, and so I'm just kind of a little pissed off, and I want to revive them, And they've been killed artificially by basically just popularizing the artificial popularization of various other avenues like entertainments. The video killed the radio star, and the radio star killed the local musician, and poetry died. I don't know when specifically poetry died, but it definitely isn't popular anymore in the way that it was in previous generations. And that's a tragedy for our society and culture, because poetry has the ability to communicate vast concepts much deeper than just uh, and that's the other thing, is literature is pretty much dead. It's all entertainment now. We have an entertainment culture instead of an enlightenment culture, and that is the death throes, the witnessing. We are witnessing that sort of death throes, and that's because of the zombies. The zombies don't want to be informed or intelligent. They want to be entertained. And that doesn't create a future. That creates a dark age. And so that's why we're headed towards such a, perilous situation. So the cure again is the attainment of knowledge, and the banishment of ignorance. And unfortunately, what you've got at a certain point is they tell you don't even do your own research on medical issues, which is like fair enough, but what about legal issues? What about becoming informed about the nature of your own bodily autonomy? What about reading up on the literature, the writings that created the culture that we live in today? And I don't mean I mean stuff that originated like in the 1600s and stuff like that. Whatever happened to challenging and actively challenging your mind and that being an aspiration for people? Poetry was one of those things that it was challenging in a sense because you have to actually read deeper than just the words. And because of the popularization of the zombie culture, people don't want to have to be challenged. And so this in and of itself is grounds basically for a total transformation of our culture. And I mean, it's a huge indictment. If it's not recognized as a huge indictment, then that's telling in and of itself that we're fucked, basically. And I know plenty of people who are literally, my brain can't handle that right now, and that's their excuse for everything. That's the generalized excuse for everything, is my brain can't handle this right now. And it never will if you don't actively care enough to try. You'll never have the wherewithal to be anything more than just a mindless drone, just sort of autopilot survival mode existence instead of actually living life, if all you ever do is just sit back and allow life to pass you by and never challenge yourself and never grow as a person. I shouldn't even have to explain this, but the fact that I do is a huge, huge problem. We don't have time really to even uh, devote to this kind of shit. But that's what needs to be done, is to practice some kind of discipline of self-education in our time. Now, I've come up with an idea that I call the Pentivium, which is an extension of the classical liberal arts. I created this idea while I was living in Yellowstone National Park, and I was accumulating knowledge up to that point. So and going there was an act of purification for me because it was a total removal of my body and my mind from our culture into an environment that was purely natural. And the beauty of that place, part of it was the fact that it didn't have poison ivy or ticks, which are a huge deterrent for me into going into the natural world, because I was, especially up to that point, very highly allergic to poison ivy and very annoyed by even just the concept of ticks. Honestly, it's disgusting and weird, creepy that these little crawly little things are like gonna bite on me and then I can get a fucking disease. Like, seriously. I don't, and I know people who have Lyme's disease, and it's extremely debilitating if you don't treat it. So, in any case, that place was a huge eye-opening experience for me because I was able to actually go into the natural world and play for once in my life in terms of a real form of play that was genuine and was beyond just sort of playing a video game or playing a game of some kind. It was playing life. I was playing life when I was there because I was going out into the natural world and exploring it and having adventures. That's what life is about. That's why we're here, in my opinion, is to explore the world and have adventures and make it something that's worthwhile and that has depth to it and that can give you a sense of beauty and awe and wonder for the world in which we live. And so that experience led me to develop the idea of the Pentivium, because I was already practicing it up to that point, and I just had to sort of put it onto a piece of paper. And I had a journal that I wrote that into the five stages of the Pentivium, which is purification, accumulation of knowledge, the actualization of that knowledge through action, the balance of those three components, the sense of balance, and then from that emerges the ability to play. You have to have a sense of awe and wonder in order to have the desire to play and to adventure in life and to start being your own sort of main character in your life instead of an NPC, instead of a drone, instead of a zombie. And so once you've attained balance in this process, play is the result. You can't not be an original character once you've taught yourself and learned who you really are and why you're really here. And those things inevitably come out of once you have a sense of self-ownership and self-determination, you're much less likely to be the pawn of someone else. And so to a large degree, this process is also the key to individual sovereignty as well as individual free thought and the ability to develop your own ideas and your own course in life. Now, granted, I mean, I'm an example of this only insofar as I'm not a hugely successful person. I'm not super wealthy, and I don't promise that to be the result of this. You know, those economic concerns are far more the result of your own effort in life in terms of your self-development and your participation in the world. I've chosen specifically made the choice not to participate in this society in terms of, or this culture, specifically because of its toxicity and the fact that I see it as something that's going to collapse relatively soon anyway. I'm not going to invest my life into this thing that will inevitably collapse under its own pressures. Now, granted, I've spent a lot of time not being a part of this, and so to a lot of people, I'm sure it's like, you're a fuck up and you're an idiot. And I accept that. I don't care what other people think to a large degree, because in a sense, this isn't about me, and I don't care what happens to me. I care what happens to the future, and I care about ideas. I don't care about myself to a large degree. Now, granted, if I die, a lot of these ideas die with me, but I've shared them with enough people, and I think that I've communicated it enough ways that the ideas will eventually flower from other people or whatever. And I hope that if I do die young or something like that early, that before my time, that people pick up these ideas and carry them forward, as though I was in them or something. Like my spirit is still residing in the hearts of other people that heard and experienced what I had to say. If not, then everything's for naught. But anyway, the point being, that's the cure. The cure to the zombie apocalypse. And I hope that we can move forward from that and actually start to sort of free the slaves, because that's also what these zombies are, is they're slaves. The main quest in my life has been to free the slaves, and the only way to do that, I've come to realize now, is to enact small acts of kindness, and these small acts of kindness will ripple out in a sort of pay it forward kind of way. That movie from like the 90s or whatever, Pay It Forward. Ultimately, love is what will save us all. And the love of knowledge and wisdom is the key, I think, honestly, to the salvation of humanity. Um, know thyself, and you shall be free, kind of thing. So, the ancient knowledge, the ancient wisdom is what will ultimately bring about a lot of the sort of changes that need to happen in the psychology of our culture. It's the merging of modern with classical and with ancient knowledge that will ultimately bring about the 21st century kind of world that we want to see. Unfortunately, what a lot of other intellectuals in the higher echelons of society are trying to bring about is the end to that knowledge permanently for the masses, by way of essentially enslaving them to uh, a grid like situation where they can't even own books. They say, well, you will own nothing and be happy. If I can't own a book, how can I learn and how can I be happy? It doesn't make any sense. um, So anyway, I think I've gone long enough in terms of this video. I don't want them to be too long. 20 minutes is kind of long. Um, so hope this was, interesting to hear. I hate outros. I hate getting to this point, but anyway, love and appreciation. Peace.